The Cities of the Scavenger Lands. Lookshy. Built on the ruins of the first-age city of Delaheshen, the city-state of Lookshy is the most powerful state in the Scavenger Lands and the nerve center of the Confederation's military power. Although several nations in the region can claim armies as large as Lookshy's in raw numbers, none can equal the training, readiness, and iron discipline of Lookshy's forces. Also, and as importantly, not even the realm can equal Lookshy's supply of first-age tactical weaponry or the training of its terrestrial exalted warriors. Lookshy was founded by the 7th Legion of the Dragon-Blooded Shogunate after the end of the First Age. Their stocks of first-age weaponry, dragon-blooded officers, and trained soldiers allow the Legion to establish a firm base, hold it, and plan for a long and complicated future. The city-state is still commanded by the General Staff of the 7th Legion, a 7-person group of military officers, both human and dragon-blooded. Residents of Lookshy fall into 4 classes: soldiers, citizens, helots, and visitors. Lookshy exists primarily to support its army, and no inhabitant of the city ever forgets that. Citizens are free individuals who can be called upon for active service at any time, and they're all trained in weapon use, tactics, and military drill. Helots are serfs, not slaves. Most of them work the fields and paddies around Lookshy, while others serve as laborers, craftsmen, scribes, and so on. They may change jobs with the permission of their supervisors, and they receive food, shelter, medical care, pay appropriate to their job, and care in their old age. Superlative work or military service can cause them to be elevated to full citizen status, but most helots live out their lives toiling as serfs. Helots are also drilled in weapons and make up the bulk of Lookshy's infantry. A grant of citizenship for a helot is usually posthumous, but it confers freedom on the helot's spouse and children as well. Visitors, such as traders, mercenaries, ambassadors, travelers, and such like, make up the last category. They are treated politely, but they are less important than anyone on official business and always less important than a soldier on active duty. Visitors are housed in a specific quarter of the city, which is itself laid out from a military standpoint, and their comings and goings are observed. Ever since the foundation of Lookshy, fertility has been seen as both virtue and social duty among the dragon-blooded members of the 7th Legion. As a result, there is a large number of dragon-blooded in Lookshy, and they form the effective aristocracy, serving side by side with unexalted officers. The people of Lookshy follow a local variant of the Immaculate Philosophy, but do not obey representatives of the Immaculate Order from the Realm or the Mouth of Peace. Instead of social control, Lookshy's faith emphasizes personal responsibility, loyalty to superiors, and personal honor as the keys to living better and future exaltation. Lookshy's war machines and armies need a constant supply of parts and materials, making trade very important to the city. In return, Lookshy exports weapons, armor, tents, wagons, camp stoves, military trainers, and, of course, soldiers. Those merchants who go outside Lookshy understand they are expected to bring back reports of what they see and hear, and while not precisely spies, they are aware of their civic duty. Lookshy has closer ties with some Scavenger Lands states than others. Staunch admiration and friendship exist between Lookshy and the Marukan Alliance. The relationship between Lookshy and Great Forks is more curious, but the 3 who guide Great Forks insist on it remaining allied closely with Lookshy, despite their philosophical differences with Lookshy's immaculate beliefs. Lookshy's relationship with the realm is one of guarded hostility and diplomacy at best, with both sides constantly on the watch for political or military advantage. Nexus. Nexus has been called the City of a Million Lice, the River Harlot's Legs, the Threshold Jewel, the Bright Sword, and the City of Black Snow. It is all of these and more. It is the headquarters of the Guild, a city of wonder and mysteries, crime and vice, and it is the crossroads of the River Province. Every good or service imaginable can be found in Nexus if the price is right, and people from across creation gather there to seek their fortune. From brilliant first-age palaces and corrupt politicians to filthy slums and cutthroats, Nexus has something for everyone, be it a purse of orichalcum or a whetted blade. Nexus stands on the remains of the first-age city of Holo at the confluence of three rivers, the Yellow and the Grey rivers, which join at the middle of the city and form the Yanase River. The mansions of the ruling council of entities sit atop the crest of the highest hills, free from the rats, disease, flooding, and stink of the poor below. Below them lie the villas and manors of the ruling class, the rich merchants, and those who can afford well for themselves. The rivers carry waste downstream, along with trade, ore-smelting byproducts, and the occasional corpse, to the massive markets and slums where the poor live. The water and waste flood downriver into wide floodplains, there silting and fertilizing the land to produce the swamp rice for which Nexus is infamous. It might taste dubious and be resistant to chewing, but it is nonetheless edible. Nexus has no formal laws. Public and social order depend on the Council of Entities and the Guild. The Council of Entities is not an authority appointed by any sort of law, but it issues public decrees that can take any form, and those decrees must be obeyed. The only constant figure on the council is the mysterious emissary, who is supposed to date back to the founding of Nexus. The council's decrees are archived in the incunabulum in the council tower. If a new decree contradicts an older one, the older one is stricken from the record. Companies of mercenaries exist to enforce the council's decrees, however strange or unreasonable those may be. The incunabulum consists of two parts: the dogma, 6 pronouncements on which Nexus was founded, and the civilities, the mass of past and present decrees issued by the council. Multiple layers of civil servants interpret the council's wishes, pass on its decrees, and take bribes and favors in return for influence. Otherwise, as long as a citizen pays her taxes and obeys the dogma and the civilities, she is able to do whatever she wishes, however violent or self-interested. Of course, other citizens can also do what they wish in response, which is why feuds and vendettas are so common in Nexus and must usually be stopped by the council eventually. Nexus still shows many signs of the first-age city it once was, from the great dams across all three rivers to the many remnants of first-age architecture. It is even home to 6 tombs of ancient anathema dating back to the First Age, which are often used as city landmarks. The newer parts of the city are a triumph of function over form, crisscrossed with canals and waterways, with a system of pulley cars that go up and down the hills, and the smelting technology that makes Nexus the largest ironworks in creation. Scholars frequent Nexus, dangerous as it is, keen to take advantage of this juxtaposition of old and new. The dogma of Nexus states the following: No taxes shall be raised, save by the council. None shall obstruct trade. None shall bring an army into Nexus. No one shall commit wanton violence. None may falsely claim the council's name or sanction. And none shall harbour a fugitive from the council's wrath. Great Forks, often called the City of Temples or the House of Festivals, known simply as Decadence to others. Great Forks is one of the most prosperous and enlightened cities in the Confederation. It is known for tolerance, art, and culture. It is a favored destination for those seeking self-indulgence and hedonism. Spirits and elementals compose a significant part of Great Forks' population, assisting in everything from military matters to bureaucracy and culture. The place positively swarms with godlings, spirits, cults, and even some fair folk. While the major exports of Great Forks are drugs and medicine, the place is also a center for slave trade, as thousands of workers are required to maintain the city's marijuana, khat, and tobacco fields. It is a place of reverie and festival, but it is founded on a solid working structure that depends on both mortal and divine contributions. Great Forks was founded in Realm Year 278, when 3 groups of refugees arrived simultaneously at the confluence of the Rolling and Yellow Rivers, each led by a powerful spirit that had protected it during the journey. The spirits were named Spinner of Glorious Tales, Weaver of Dreams of Victory, and Shield of a Different Day, generally shortened by mortal tongues to Tailspinner, Dreamweaver, and Dayshield. As the 3 groups readied for battle over the land, the spirits entered negotiations. At this time, the nearby Shadowland, now known as Walker's Realm, was ruled by the Deathlord Princess Magnificent with lips of coral and robes of black feathers. The spirits knew a war between their 3 peoples would leave the winner too weak to withstand an attack from the princess. However, they found that they and all their people had much in common, so they ultimately agreed to share the lands they had all claimed and to make their peoples one. After they had settled their united folk, Tailspinner and Dreamweaver crafted a story of mighty victory over the Deathlord, while Dayshield warded the people and their spirit allies behind walls of illusion. The sorceress story drove the princess away in fear of her own annihilation. Within a year and a day, Great Forks arose from what had been plains and beaches, built by the 3 peoples and by lesser spirits and elementals. Within a decade of its founding, the city had grown prosperous, and it was a charter member of the Confederation of Rivers. Great Forks is a thriving city of more than 250,000 citizens and nearly twice as many slaves. The 3, as the gods are collectively known, rule the city by decree and example, tending toward leniency and tolerance, and a merit-based human bureaucracy runs the city from day to day. The 3 also encourage learning and education among their citizens, and Great Forks is home to some of the River Province's most famous sorcerers and savants. Many of these individuals vacation or dwell in Great Forks in townhouses subsidized and staffed by the government in exchange for lecturing at the city's famous university. The city goes to great lengths to maintain good relations with its neighbors and contributes large amounts of logistical assistance, medical drugs, and jade to the Confederation's undertakings. Its military, though still recovering from the devastating losses sustained at the Battle of Mishaka, counts a number of spirits and elementals among its ranks and is backed by the power of the 3. While Great Forks bases its economy on slave labor, slaves have many rights in the city. They can own property or marry, they may be subjected to only certain forms of punishment, and they may not be cut off from their families. Manumission is possible at a set price. However, they are ultimately property, and the law treats them as such. Killing a slave is a civil rather than a criminal offense, for instance. Most field slaves receive a ration of meat leaf, which acts as a physical stimulant whilst dulling the mind and memory, keeping them at their tasks and quieting any thoughts of rebellion. What often troubles visitors, and particularly ones from the realm, is the sheer number of spirits and elementals in Great Forks. Water elementals bring fish to the city's nets, Ifrit guard the palace, wood spirits scout the forests and grasslands around the city, and the gods serve alongside mortals in many different capacities. God-blooded are common in Great Forks, and many inhabitants claim descendancy from a minor godling or greater elemental. Other god-blooded, not born there, journey to the city to find a place where they will be accepted. There are even fair folk in Great Forks, drawn to a city so devoted to the expression of passions. The three tolerate these visitors so long as they do not hurt anyone unconsenting or attempt to extend their influence among the population. With the city full of godlings and spirits and cults abound, the temple district takes up a full third of the city. Hardly a day goes by in Great Forks which is not considered holy to at least half a dozen different cults or religions. They usually honor it with parades, music, and festivals. The temple district is therefore one of the most crowded parts of the city. Sijan. Sijan is an old city, so ancient that no one knows when it was first built. Some of the tombs outside of the city walls predate even the First Age. Sijan is dedicated to the dead and to ghosts, providing proper burials for corpses from across the Confederation of Rivers and enacting rites to propitiate angry ghosts. Directed by the Funeral Order of Righteous Morticians and Embalmers, also known as the Morticians' Order, Sijan tends to the dead and undead alike. Her jet-black funeral galleys roam the rivers unmolested by brigands or warlords, and members of the Morticians' Order, with their silver braces, are a common sight in almost every city in the Confederation of Rivers. The dead are not an abstract concept. Ghosts are not myths, and the Sijanese are experts in dealing with both. Sijan lies between the River of Tears on the west, the Avarice River on the south, and the fell forest of Black Chase to the north. 2 bridges across the Avarice lead to the Plains of the Dead, as the cemeteries of Sijan are called. The Rising, or Eastern Bridge, is the Bridge of Mortals, and only the living may cross it. The Setting, or Western Bridge, is the Bridge of the Fallen, and only the dead may cross it. The Plains of the Dead stretch for miles in every direction, leading almost to the horizon. Vast mausoleums rise from the earth, some the size of small towns. Some are built for a single hero or ruler, while others hold the population of whole cities. The valley of Sijan was once much deeper and steeper, but millennia of building and overgrowth have stacked tombs, crypts, and bones on top of each other in such tangled profusion that the valley floor has risen over 100 feet. Many of the underground tombs are maintained by expert morticians who descend into the hidden crypts to propitiate the buried ghosts. Some areas are completely lost to time or forgotten, though, and the hungry ghosts there sleep uneasily, if at all. The city of Sijan itself is a quiet place. No revelers disturb its streets, and no festivals mar the silence, save those celebrated for the dead. Mortal revels are held behind closed doors, in feast halls and taverns cut deep into the stone below Sijan, so as not to disturb the dead. Visitors to Sijan who venture out at night are sometimes never seen again, or else found dead the next morning. Like any other city, Sijan has its criminals, but not all of Sijans are living. The roads of Sijan are likewise hazardous at night. The Morticians' Order is the closest thing to a government that Sijan possesses. They are masters of funeral rites, embalmers, flesh-crafters, ghost speakers, and exorcists. All members of the Morticians' Order wear heavy grey gowns with thick overshawls, and are given Mortician's rank and membership in one of the 3 observances that constitute the order. Funerists, mortrites, and dead speakers are indicated by the heavy silver braces he wears. All morticians swear strict oaths regarding conduct, the wishes of the dead, the sanctity of their roles as guides to the afterlife, and the need for circumspect behavior. Few break them, but those who do can become infamous. Sijan has little need to worry about war, barbarian raids, or bandits. Even the fair folk avoid this funeral city. The leaders of the Morticians' Order meet once a year to determine any important decisions, but there are few questions that have not already been settled by millennia of tradition. If necessary, they can call on the advice of the dead, and it is said that the wisest savants of the First Age frequently assist in their deliberations. The city has no military because it needs none. It has a small black-armored town guard to quell disturbances and present a deterrent to the righteous living and the unquiet dead. Its most infamous constituent is the ghostly Black Watch, consisting of nemissaries girded in black plate armor who were themselves victims of grave robbery and now take great pleasure in hunting down tomb raiders. Although Sijan is a signatory of the Confederation of Rivers, its status is purely diplomatic. Sijan maintains strict and dignified neutrality, burying the corpses of all nations without prejudice. Its appointee to the Council of the Concordat remains silent unless asked his opinion. Sijan otherwise maintains good relations with its neighbors, with the exception of Great Forks. Great Forks is the only city in the Scavenger Lands that doesn't employ Sijan funerists, and no citizens of the City of Temples go to Sijan after their death. Likewise, the black galleys of Sijan never dock in Great Forks. The cause of this coldness is unknown, and both sides refuse to discuss it. Greyfalls. Greyfalls is the realm's last bastion in the Scavenger Lands. Captured by the realm in realm year 88, it was granted to the realm in realm year 91 as part of a peace treaty ending the realm's third invasion. Over the centuries, the Scarlet Empress has worked hard to maintain this toehold in the Scavenger Lands, which consists of the high-towered city of Greyfalls itself, half a dozen small towns, and a large stretch of sparsely populated upland. It is one of only 3 places in the Scavenger Lands where the realm keeps an official presence, and only one where that presence is significant. Because of its unique status, Greyfalls has become the place where the Scavenger Lands go to transact business with the realm. Imperial merchant houses that cannot do business on Scavenger Lands soil have holdings in Greyfalls, allowing them to compete with the guild in trade. All such business is transacted at the Greyfalls dock rather than at the freeport in Lookshy, so that the realm receives the full import and dock taxes on all goods. It has become a huge transshipment port, dealing particularly in glass, crystal, and paper. The realm historically kept a strong military presence in the area, but events on the Blessed Isle in the last 5 years have reduced that presence to a fraction of its former size. In response, the local officers have begun heavy local recruiting efforts. Previously, troops stationed at Greyfalls were incompetent, inept victims of political intrigue, insubordinate, or just straight criminals. Now, however, the dragon-blooded officers are starting to forge a real weapon out of their forces. Politically, the area has a dragon-blooded satrap and a bureaucracy that focuses more on taxes and trade duties than on government. Actual rulership of the area, subject to interference by the satrap, is in the hands of the Nuri clan. The Nuri clan is more of a tribal nation than a family. It was an oppressed minority when the realm first invaded, and the realm placed its men in positions of power and used it to crush local dissent. While not obsequious, the Nuri are loyal to the Scarlet Empress, but they view current events and troubles in the realm with an increasingly troubled eye. The Marukan Alliance. The Marukan Alliance is a collection of medium-sized towns. Its only true city is Celeran, centered around the fortress manse of the same name. The Alliance spreads across the warm savannas and patches of forest that cover the southeastern reaches of the Scavenger Lands, fed by the many small watercourses that ultimately flow into the Grey River. Cargo is moved by wagon trains, and the region is famous for its horses and yedim. The people of the Marukan Alliance are riders of horse from birth. A Marukani child can balance on a horse almost before she can walk. Horses are companions and friends rather than mere beasts of burden or pets. The high point of the Marukani year is the spring market, when yearlings are sold and new foals are judged for suitability and training. Buyers come from across the Scavenger Lands or even further afield to purchase a Marukini horse. The spring market is also a time for celebrating the dead in a country-wide wake, marked by drinking, singing, and dancing. Revelers recite the accomplishments of those who died in the past year, and huge wagons stuffed with the remains of the most honored dead, both human and horse, are sent north to Sijan. There they are interred in mausoleums bought by the Alliance centuries ago. The Marukan Alliance is governed by a council of elders that meets in the Celaren Manse. The council's leading voice is the elder of the Mehiros clan, the terrestrial Exalted family that owns the Manse. The council generally concerns itself with foreign diplomacy. Local law, together with council decrees, are enforced by circuit riders, who also carry the mail, watch the borders, and scout the wilderness. Trials are held by a jury of local elders and overseen by a circuit rider. However, circuit riders are empowered to take whatever actions they deem necessary against miscreants, and they can hold a trial or pass down summary judgments without benefit of jury. The usual penalties are a heavy fine or death, as Marukani law does not allow slavery or imprisonment. The 100 Kingdoms. The 100 Kingdoms consists of a collection of small principalities, autocracies, republics, dictatorships, and petty kingdoms. They lie from the confluence of the Maruto and Yellow rivers eastward to the edge of the eastern forests. Many are no larger than a fortified town and a handful of villages. They are a fractious lot. The 100 Kingdoms are the breadbasket of the Scavenger Lands, providing much of the grain eaten in the Confederation of Rivers. Most of the kingdoms rely on agriculture or mining as their primary source of wealth, though kingdoms on the rivers have a third source of income, tolls extracted from upriver and downriver traffic. Castles on the river's edge, equipped with ballistae, archers, and even some first-age weapons, make sure that most passing boats will stop to be searched and pay a toll. These kingdoms have existed in a barely controlled state of enmity for centuries, constantly exploding into petty wars and raids, each one generally hostile to most of its neighbors. Occasionally, some would-be ruler or coalition attempts to seize control, but so far none have succeeded. Denandsor. The first-age city of Denandsor, also known as the Empty City, lies 2 weeks' journey from Great Forks, near the southern edge of the Scavenger Lands, in the country of Melakin. During the First Age it was renowned as a center of learning and trade. The city's merchant kings sponsored trade missions throughout creation, and the library of Denandsor attracted savants from the 4 corners of the world. Today, no merchants ply their wares, no blacksmiths work in their foundries, and no children play in its gardens. No one alive knows what catastrophe fell upon the people of Denandsor. Fragmentary records suggest that the city's dragon-blooded governor attempted to use a powerful artifact to protect the city's inhabitants from the Great Contagion, but no specific records have survived. The city is deathly silent and empty. Whatever caused the city's fall, none can stand to remain there now for more than a few hours or a day at most. A sense of dread and unease creeps over all those who walk Denansor's streets, growing stronger the longer the person remains in the city, until finally it becomes unendurable. Those forced to stay longer are either driven into a catatonic state of despair or are never seen again. However, since only the strongest-willed can remain in Denandsor for long, Large sections of the First Age city remain unplundered, and new treasure-hunting missions are constantly being fitted up. Even without whatever enchantments shroud the city in fear, Denandsor would not be safe for explorers. Not only do the usual panoply of magical defenses and complex mechanical traps guard the area, but Denansor's guardians still wait throughout the city. These guardians are sophisticated automata of brass and silver, built before the contagion to act as civil protectors and police, and many of them are still functional. While they are mostly quiescent when discovered, resting in a kind of mechanical hibernation, they wake if they are disturbed, or if the area they were assigned to is molested. Their specific actions depend on the last instructions they received. Some will attack immediately, while others attempt to discern what the intruders are doing before apprehending them. The automata themselves would be of great interest to many savants, if only they could be removed from Denandsor. Calin. Calin joined the Confederation of Rivers a little over 300 years ago, after centuries as a tributary and ally to the realm. Many claim that it did so for the economic benefits rather than any sort of ethical or high-minded political reason. Certainly, Calin is not a progressive state. Its traditional government consists of a weak shogun and a number of powerful daimyos, with little voice for anyone not in the highest ranks. It is a small but placid country, full of rolling hills and fertile fields, with walled towns and manors linked by well-maintained roads. Calin revolves around the house system. No shogun has ever been elected from outside of the 14 noble houses, although all citizens of Calin theoretically vote on a new shogun after the old one's death. The kingdom is divided into patronages, granted by the shogun to anyone she wishes except for her own family. The current royal family keeps the patronages they owned upon the shogun's ascension, but they may not receive new ones except under very specific circumstances. A patronage gives the recipient family almost complete control over its governmental fiefdom, unless the shogun revokes it for some reason. Along with immediate responsibility, the patronages carry great power, substantial wealth, and the wherewithal to continue trading favors and debits with other families. The patronage system prompts near-constant jockeying for position and influence within the shogun's court. Members of the various houses, influential merchants, guildmasters, sorcerers, dragon-blooded outcasts, and others all vie for the shogun's attention. This web of deception and intrigue is commonly known as the Great Game, and it has lasted for centuries. Blackmail, espionage, the dueling code, manipulation of the legal system, and even assassination are all tools in the game. Even though many come to Calin innocently to take advantage of the grain trade, the slave trade, or the fishing industries for which Calin is famous, they are often drawn into the machinations of the noble houses. And just like almost everywhere else in the Scavenger Lands, the Guild maintains a heavy presence in Calin. The Guild. The Guild is at once an enterprise, an organization, and an institution. As a business enterprise, the Guild is a collaborative effort between the most wealthy and influential merchants and artisans in creation, dedicated to the increase of that wealth and influence. As a trade organization, it is the originator and overseer of standards such as weights, measures, value, supply, and demand. And as a social institution, the Guild links distant lands, employs thousands, and creates a sense of community in a large and hostile world. The concept of the Guild was born in realm year 88, when Great Forks merchant Brem Marst came into contact with a group of merchant philosophers in the Lap called the Counters. He put the Counters' philosophical teachings to practical use, and within 10 years he had solidified the basic structure. The Guild itself was founded in realm year 99, supported by the recent formation of the League of Many Rivers, but also by merchant houses from Sijan, Nexus, and Chaya. 18 years later, the Guild established its permanent headquarters in Nexus, and formalized the first directorate, the head of the pyramidal structure that it has become. It worked its trade route tendrils throughout the threshold and solidified its structure, just as the realm itself was stabilizing on and around the Blessed Isle, and beginning to spread. Over the next 3 centuries, the guild grew steadily, and local merchant houses and leagues became absorbed into it, while nations and city-states became dependent on guild-delivered goods and news. The constant battles between the realm and the River League impressed on the guild the need for military might of its own, and in response it formed the first affiliated mercenary companies. It established functionally permanent contracts with large-standing mercenary companies, and became a military power in its own right. The Empress permitted strictly limited trade with the Blessed Isle, but restricted the areas in which guilds, craftsmen, and merchants could operate. She disallowed trade in jade, weapons, armor, and rice, and animosity over these restrictions blossomed into a trade war in realm year 416. This destructive conflict ended 2 years later after doing more damage to the surrounding threshold states and tributaries than to the guild or the realm. The 3 main branches of the guild are merchants, craftsmen, and laborers. Anyone who joins them must enter through one of those 3 branches and must have a guild sponsor. Good though those other main businesses are, the 3 effective pillars of the guild in practice are slaves, drugs, and mercenaries. Since the Great Contagion, the slave trade has been an integral factor in rebuilding and maintaining societies across creation. The guild buys from warlords and armies, civilized nations and barbarians, shadowlands and fairfolk, and then it moves the living bodies to where they are wanted. One faction that does not trade slaves with the guild, however, is the Imperial Army, as the Empress made it clear that House Sinus was to maintain the monopoly on slave trading inside the Scarlet Empire. The guild's willingness to trade slaves with the fairfolk in order to feed their hunger for souls, even after the fairfolk launched numerous assaults on creation, has done nothing for its reputation.